Hello and welcome to Transcending Veils. I am your host, D.E. Riley, and welcome to our premiere video podcast. We have waited for this forever, guys, and I am so excited about tonight. Um, man, the only drawback is tonight, Audra Moon is not going to be with us, guys. She called off tonight. And now I have been managing people forever, and this is the first time I ever had anyone call off and say, I can't make it in because I'm in a situation that requires raising the damn and tortured souls of the dead.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's our Audra. You know, it's a busy lady. She's always got something going on. But filling in for Audra tonight in her podcast premiere, ladies and gentlemen. This is the newest member of our team. Guys, welcome aboard, Miss Alexis Reeves. Alexis, how are you doing, dear?
Oh, good. How are you?
Hanging in there. You know, that's the only
yeah.
thing I can do anymore.
Mhm.
Are you excited? You ready?
Oh, yeah. Very
This
excited.
is it.
Ready.
Okay, guys, just to let you know, in our world, there seems to be a lot of darkness that we encounter all the time, and Alexis is our bright sunshine in that darkness. She's going to help us make it through, guys. You might remember her from our UFO episode. She was our guest on the UFO episode, so she's very knowledgeable in the paranormal. I've known her for a few years, love her to death. She's my little sister, Alexis. Now tonight, also, we have a very special guest, Miss Tonya Steinborn, the Witch of Wellness, coming to us. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on TikTok. You can find her on Clapper and God only knows what else, Facebook. She was a special guest of ours on the Witches and Witchcraft episode. Tanya, standing ovation for you. There you go. How are you doing tonight, dear?
I'm doing great.
Good. Tanya, I'm so excited to have you in the studio. Guys, if you have not checked out Tanya yet, please go check her out, Witch of Wellness, at all the locations I just gave. We will talk about that at the end of the show. Tonight, there goes my mic again. Can you guys hear that buzzing? That makes me nuts. Hang on just 1 second. Technical difficulties, folks. Sorry about that. Happens. Don't. I'm in an argument with an inanimate object. All
Why
right.
I'm holding my breath.
All right. Don't do that because it may be a while. We don't want you to pass out while we're recording. But that's the things we run into. Okay, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very, very special guest in the studio. This lady is a personal friend of mine. I have known her for well over a decade. We were trying to figure out earlier how long it's been, and we can't even remember how long it's been. I met her during it was a book promotion tour she was on at a pirate festival, and at that time I was doing pirate reenactments. Now I went back and I asked her. I said, "Give me a little bit of your credentials so I've got something to work with here." And it was like a child's Christmas list. This thing unrolled and unrolled and unrolled and unrolled. And I'm going to give you a taste of what this amazing lady is into. She is the author of three paranormal historical pirate novels. And according to Forbes Online in 2011, their quote was, "What J.K. Rowling did for wizards and Stephanie Meyer did for vampires, Marti Melville has done for pirates." That is a hell of a review right there. She's written 4 children's books called Ballyhoo Hoo. 1 supernatural thriller about a haunted house in Savannah. She has psychic intuitive skills on how to recognize and utilize them. She's a member of the Authors Guild. She is an RN emergency nurse. She's been that way for more than 20 years, but retired. She's a holistic RN. She's a forensic nurse specialist. I am halfway through the list, so hang on. She is a member of the American Holistic Nurse Association. She's a member of the International Association of Forensic Nurses. She is into remote viewing. She's a member of the International Remote Viewing Association, IRVA. She has basic parapsychological certified. She is a Reiki and Reiki Fire Master. And I always pronounce that word wrong. And she is a member of the Sixth Sense Forensic Investigative and Consultant Team, certified psychic forensic specialists. Did I get it all, Marty? Ladies and gentlemen, Marti Melville. Did I get it all?
I think so. That's a lot.
Okay, that's a lot. I actually tried to go through that in one breath, and I couldn't make it.
No.
Could not
Well,
make
I've got some years on me, so that accounts for a lot of that.
Yeah, well, you're preaching to the choir there, kiddo. So,
Mhm.
so I'm sure these two ladies' ages combined don't even get to my age yet. So, Marty, welcome to the show. We are so
Thank you.
happy to have you here.
No, I'm
And we
thrilled
are
to be
going to
here.
talk about the last thing on the list, the paranormal forensics. Okay, I don't. How do you do that? How do you get a team together? What's the vetting process of hiring somebody for a team like
Well, we are more of a task force than hiring. This came about, a long story, but this came about as a result of some experiences that I had. And then as an RN working in the ER, I've dealt with a little bit of forensics there and had some opportunities as a result of that. And forensics has always been an interest to me, particularly because I actually went to high school with one of Ted Bundy's victims. And something
that?
about that,
Wow.
yeah,
Oh,
got
wow.
her 2 streets down from my house. So there's a part of that that has always felt unresolved. And as I retired from working in the ER, I had a desire to look, I'm obviously not done yet working. So the holistic nursing came into being, and I am a certified spiritual counselor with my RN. I am not a clinical counselor, but I am certified in spiritual counseling. And along with that came the opportunity to do forensics certification, and that just sent the ball running. But I had an experience a lot like the story that I just heard about a dream, and that it was basically a missing child that I saw. And I'll tell it to you real quickly. 3 nights in a row, I woke up at 4:44 a.m. 3 nights in a row, that same time. First night, I had snapshot visions of this little kiddo and different scenes, and I thought they were odd, but it was that sepia color, so it was like it was different. And I thought, I'm going to write this down. So I wrote it down, thankfully. And next night, 4:44, a whole new set of images that came through. This started to get my attention. I thought, this is not coincidental. Wrote all of that down. Third night, the last one was a little unsettling, and it was all about this same little boy. And when I was finished, I knew that there was a reason it came to me. I didn't know what to do with it. So I called a friend of mine and said, what do I do? She put me in touch with an intuitive psychic remote viewer that works with the Orange County Police Department in California. And so we talked. She sent me to the remote viewing, IRVA, and I started being trained in remote viewing. I trained with Paul Smith, who was a member of the original Stargate military group, and I trained with Pam Coronado the longest. I also trained missing persons with her, psychic missing persons. So Pam Coronado is she was the president of IRVA when I joined, but she was on Sensing Murder. She's worked with the FBI for missing persons, and she is a psychic. So this culmination came together, and I posted the story on my website. It's still there, and was contacted within a day by law enforcement in Africa asking how I had evidence on a missing person they had. Of course, I'm panicked and told him, I've never been to Africa. I don't want to go to Africa. I love all your animals, but I'm staying over here in Seattle. I'm not going anywhere else. And she finally believed me because, initially you go to law enforcement with information. They're going to assume, if you're accurate, that you're somehow involved in the crime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very tricky to get the credibility across that, no, this is something that came to me intuitively. It's not anything I have experienced. I'm just trying to help. And fortunately, she believed me. She validated all of the images that I saw. I mean, it's uncanny. And I teach this when I teach I do a remote viewing presentation at some of the spirit festivals that I do, and have images of those. Someday I'll share those with you. But that took me again even further into what is this intuition, and what is it meant for? And I know I had used it in the ER several times, and there was no mistaking that it was there, and that it saved lives. And so as I pursued studying forensics as a nurse, I realized that 90% of forensics is actually intuitive work. And you'll hear law enforcement say, oh, it's sixth sense. Oh, it's a gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's intuition, right?
Right.
So I put together some courses, and I have set up a certification program for anybody that is interested in certifying in forensics. The first 2 months of the training is paid for. After that, all of the training is free, but the certification, of course, to take the test is you pay a little fee for that. And then if you pass the certification exam, you have the option to be part of the Sixth Sense Forensics team. So we are not a professional trained forensics team. There are several medical people. There's another RN. There's social work. There is a government, a person that worked for a senator in DC. So we've got law enforcement. We've got all kinds of varied backgrounds coming in and certifying in this. And the goal is to be able to broaden our expanse of who we reach and who we can work with in the forensics field.
That's absolutely amazing, and it lends so much credibility, that people say, oh, it's a bunch of hooey and it's a bunch of bullshit, and this is just crap that people can't possibly know this or that or the other thing, but it is possible. And I've talked about this on the show before. My mother was very, very intuitive, and she was from the South, so she had feelings, and when she had feelings, and it didn't matter who it was or where they lived in the United States, if she had feelings about this relative, there was something going on, and she was always 100% dead on, She knew. I mean, my father was in a very, very devastating car accident one night, and he was miles from the house. And she, all of a sudden, for no reason, gets up, walks over to the back door, opens the back door, and she's looking out the back door. And I said, what are you looking at? And she goes, I just got this feeling something's wrong with your dad. And it wasn't 10 minutes later, the phone rang from the sheriff's department saying that, dad had been in a wreck. And so, I mean, she knew, and not only about him, but about any member of our family. She knew. So, that's what kind of sealed the deal with me, that there's something that goes on, with the spirit and with the intuitions of people that's more than just folklore and wives' tales. And, this is what makes this so fascinating about what you're doing, because it's like I couldn't figure out, as to how you hire people to do this. So what's the interview process? Guess what card I've got? You know, I didn't
Yeah.
get it, but now it makes a little more sense to me.
Well, what you describe as mother's intuition, they call it. And I
Yeah.
believe in that. Yeah. And the reason that there isn't there is a vetting process, but there is not a hiring process is because I believe and come from the standpoint that everybody has this intuitive ability. Not everybody has strengths in all different ways that they receive the intuition, which
Mhm.
is one of the reasons I wrote the book. So how do I know this is real? So that we can all recognize where and how to use the intuition that comes to us. But we all have it. Some of us listen to it better than others. And a perfect example of that, I teach this in my course. There are things that you know, that you know, that you know, that you know, and nobody can tell you otherwise, and you can't explain it. An example is if you're driving in the car and all of a sudden you hear, stop, and you hit the brakes. That's happened to every single one of us. You hit the brakes, you don't know where the voice came from, you stop the car and a deer runs in front of your car, or a car runs in front of your car, something like that. That kind of intuitive listening allows forensics investigators to go into a scene and look at the scene and go, something's not right. Something's not the way it's being presented. I'm thinking of like a staged crime scene, for example. And a lot of the investigators, when you hear them talk, they'll say, I just had a gut feeling about XYZ, you know. And you never hear people say, oh, I wish I hadn't listened to my gut feeling on that. They always say, I wish I'd listened to my gut feeling on that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Or I just
Yeah,
had a gut feeling about this or that.
exactly.
And yeah, I've experienced that 1,000 times. Tanya, you look like
Exactly.
you've got something on your mind that you, I see your eyes twitching back and forth, and
I was just like, how do I sign up for this course?
there you go.
I will give you the information. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love. We do it. I'll tell you just a little bit about the course. The first 2 months is the basic course where I introduce you to forensics terms and processes and some of those things, and then the next sometimes 2 to 4 months, depending upon how fast we can progress through what we need to learn, because it's huge. Forensics is not just crime scenes. I mean, it is crime, but it's not just murders. It's also cyber. It's natural disaster. There's nature. There's all kinds of forensics that we can get into, and we don't cover all of it, but we try and touch the surface of most of it. And so I usually do a new group every 2 to 3 months. So my thought is probably August or September we'll start a whole another group. We just barely started one in June. But I'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Come on board.
There you go.
Well, I love, I took a little intro course with controlled remote viewing with Lori.
Uh-huh.
Do you know Lori? I can't remember her last name, but she does the controlled remote viewing.
Yeah.
And it was
that's
really fascinating because it was like
Yeah.
just these coordinates and you just write down this stuff. And I got the whole thing right, like the whole scene. I drew it out and wrote it out.
Awesome.
And I was like, this is fascinating, like just the
Yeah.
controlled remote viewing. And yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do. And when you look at history and look at what the Stargate military group did, it just blows your mind, and that was brand new territory. Nobody had ever done that before. So the CIA and the Army took off with it, and now we all benefit from it.
Are you familiar with that, Alexis? Stargate?
I've heard it mentioned. Actually, I think spoke about it earlier today, but I'm not real familiar with it.
I'm not going to explain it because I'm not familiar with it.
It's a bottom line. I'll tell you real quick.
Okay.
The bottom line is
Okay.
There was a group of, and this is Paul Smith's term, not mine. He called them grunts, military grunts, that they pulled into a barracks and no windows, no doors, nothing, just a table and chairs. And they said, okay, we're going to give you some coordinates, which is basically just numbers. Tell us what you see. And they're like, what? So Ingo Swann is the one who initiated this program and taught them all how to do it. And I will tell you, these guys aren't grunts. They all speak multiple languages. They're physicists, they're neuroscientists. I mean, that their list of credentials go a mile long. They're brilliant, brilliant men. And they all basically used remote viewing, which is a psychic skill or a psi skill, they'll call it, intuitive skill, to locate. There were some, one of them located a Russian submarine that was in hiding that nobody believed was in existence. They found POWs that had gone missing. They did some amazing things.
Now, are you able to discuss any cases that you and your team have worked on in the past or recent past?
No. And it's not because I don't want to.
Well, that makes a shitty interview,
I know, right? I'm sorry. I'll tell you why. Part of the reason is because this is a new group and they're still working on some of this. So we take actual cases that we are not involved with law enforcement and work on those for practice. But then there are those in the team who have reached out to law enforcement, and I don't want to go public with any of the information that has gone there, because if it is used as evidence and I'm broadcasting it on a podcast, they could throw it out. And I don't want to jeopardize the case. So we don't do that. Yeah.
So how so I was just going to ask, like, how does that go? Like, when you get a file, like, is it somebody comes to you and says, hey, this is, my daughter's missing, and here's a situation, gives you the file, and then your team meets, and then how does that,
yes.
like,
that's exactly how it happens. Yes. So most of what we have, and like I said, because of the varied backgrounds, we've all done different things. So the cases that we have had have been missing persons. And of course it's, some of them know the scene, some of them don't. And then as a team, I will vet a lot of what comes in, and kind of, there's no sense sending a medical case to an auto mechanic, right? So unless there was a car accident where the car was possibly jimmy rigged, and then the auto mechanic needs to come in, right? So I try and vet the cases and make sure that what goes to our team fits the people that are there. And that allows also for us to take more than one case at a time, which is the goal. So we will have cases of people that are missing, that they will come to us and say, hey, can you tell us what you see? What are your thoughts? There's ways to talk to family members about loved ones that we suspect have not survived an event. And then we all try and make sure that we can locate, the missing person somehow. There's also a few that will contact their connections with law enforcement or attorneys and say, hey, I've got this information. If you're interested in it, we'll give it to you. If you're not interested, that's fine. Check it. But here it is. And very few exceptions, have they not been right on. But the thing that's interesting about law enforcement is they don't want to admit that they are working with any kind of psychic or intuitive people. And that's fine, because, part of being an expert witness in court is being able to justify and have evidence of what you're saying. Well, psychically, sometimes that's hard to prove. So I teach, looking at actual hard evidence and then validating it through intuition. Although there are those who will go look at a scene and look at it psychically, and then they come in behind with the evidence and validate what their impressions are. So how you approach that is very different, and it seems to serve really well. I personally have worked also, and I've been approached from attorneys on different cases as a nurse consultant. So I'll do legal nurse consulting. I'll look over a case, give them my write-up as to what I believe has happened, based on what they're asking me to do, send it off, and then they use that in the courtroom if they need it. So it's very interesting.
Wow.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not for the faint-hearted, though. I will say that, because there's a couple of cases I can think of now where two of our team members have talked a lot about how the victim has come to them and said, I need you to find my body. This is where da 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 da. So they have personal interaction with a person who has passed. That's their mediumship ability. So the trick is, once they have that impression, being able to validate that with the evidence. And we've talked about going to different scenes to see if we can get the evidence, but at the same time, you got to be careful you don't cross lines that you're not welcome in. And I don't ever want to jeopardize law enforcement's efforts on any cases.
Right.
So we have to be really careful. Yeah.
Now we have, Alexis, don't be polite. Jump in anytime, dear. I know you're just itching to ask her something. I can tell by
yes, I am.
Go.
Okay. So in general, about how many cases do you handle at one time? And then the other question after that would be, do you face any, like pushbacks, since, as you said, they don't always like to admit that they're working
yes
with psychic forensics?
I'll answer the second one first. There is pushback. And it's not just from law enforcement, it's from attorneys. I really respect law enforcement. I have tremendous respect for them, and I love working with them. So that's not the issue. But there's the whole point of any kind of forensics investigation or investigation by law enforcement is to come in with hard facts to prove the case. And so I may have someone talk to us and say, we really appreciate everything you're giving us. We're going to go look at it. We're going to, take some time or whatever, and then choose not to work with us beyond that initial impression or the initial report that we provide. And that's because they have to have the solid evidence. There's a process that has to go through for an expert witness, and the judge is the one ultimately that decides, if we can be admitted as expert witnesses or not. So yes, there is pushback there. We were talking the other day about one of the team members made a call to a law enforcement officer, and they hung up, click. It was like, thanks, no thanks, bye. And that's fine. That's fine, because there are so many missing people and so many cases that need to be looked at, that I feel like the universe or spirit of God, or, whatever the higher powers that y'all want to talk about, when they bring that to any one of the team members, it's for a reason. And so just like this little boy that I had the experience with, the missing one, I didn't know what to do with that information. And I just threw it out, said, okay, God, you gave me these dreams, this information. Now take it to who needs to have it. And it went exactly to where it needed to go. So I believe that happens in every case. And if we're not meant to be involved this time, that's fine. That's fine. So case-wise, it varies. Right now we are working... I want to say there's 4 active cases, and then there's about that same number of not real active cases. So it just varies. It varies upon first of all, the interest. Second of all, if we can support, if we don't have people on our task force, on our team, that can provide what is needed, then I decline and we don't take the case. because I don't want to waste anybody's time and
So
energy.
is there like a bottom line
Right.
process to where you say, okay, and I'm sorry, but I'm going off what I've seen on TV. You meet with your team and
Yeah.
you go, okay, this is what we've got: A, B, C, D, and E. This is what I think we ought to go after. What do you think? Or what's the process of deciding
Well, it's
what
very
gets you insight?
interactive. So the website sixthsenseforensics.net has an area where you can go in, or they can go in, and they can set up a 1 hour pro bono consultation. And in that consultation is usually with me, and I go through everything and make sure that whatever the case is that they are presenting is something we have an expert for, or we can, as a group, provide expert information. If we can't, I tell them, thank you, I don't think we're the right team for you. If we do, and I feel strongly about it, then I go to the team and I will basically do exactly like you said. Here's what we've got. Does anybody have any interest in this? And what's interesting is, as the cases have come before the team, there are those who are drawn to certain victims and certain cases, and others are not. And they will be very honest. We have a constant dialogue with our group. We have a couple of different chat venues that we use, and then we have our files that we keep all of the information. Everybody inputs in what they can, but there are those who just say, I'm not getting anything else. I'm not getting anything, you know. And then, of course, the legal nurse consulting, the nurses take that and look
All
at
right.
that, and that's pretty straightforward. But
Now,
yeah, it is. It's very interactive, very much discussion. No one has dominance over anything, but there always seems to be one person that is more passionate about a case than another, and so they kind of naturally take the lead,
and you've been
and we all
involved
work
in this.
together.
You've been doing this for how long now?
I've been teaching for a year.
A year.
So the team has been together for a year is all. We're brand new.
I
Brand
interrupted
new.
Oh, wow.
somebody. Who did I interrupt? Go ahead. No?
Oh, I was gonna ask a question. So now is this now do you travel, or is this by the state you're in?
The nice thing is we all of our team members, there's only one person that lives in Florida with me. Everybody else is around the United States. So we are technically a US company, or team, task force team. Cases are from all over. I've had them call from Hawaii. I've had several different cases from, Hawaii. I've had them, oh my goodness, Indiana. We're working on an Indiana case right now. I mean, they're all over, mixed variety. And it's good, because the nice thing about the internet is, you can do conversations like this, and you can, documents, you can share documents, and you can do things that you need to do in private manners. You have to be really careful. I do follow a privacy. We have privacy rules and follow the HIPAA laws and those kinds of things. So,
Okay. Well,
um,
I keep shutting my mic off because I keep hearing somebody outside my house yelling for whatever reason. So if you get something that comes across that says there's a missing person in Ohio, ignore it, okay? Because
okay.
I'm going after
You're gonna go after him.
that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. It's a very sobering process. And I have actually, another hat I wear is with my writing, and the books. I actually write with a partner who used to work for DreamWorks. So we write screenplays. I don't know if you knew that, David.
Do you
But
ever sleep? I mean, for God's
no, I
sakes.
don't sleep. Anyway, he is a Hollywood icon. He's amazing. And he said to me once, he said, "You're such a nice person. How can you go to such dark places all the time?" And my thought is, honestly, the victims don't have a voice, and the families are desperate. And the bulk of our cases actually really have come from family members who The cases are cold. They're desperate for help. We try really hard not to get a false sense of security or false sense of hope, but we are more than willing to help anybody that is looking, for a little extra information. We'll give you what we can get. And if it helps, great. And if it doesn't, then at least it's something.
So it's solely
And
on a basis of they contact you. You don't go out and look for.
not always. There
Resist-
are some cases that I have had a couple of team members feel very strongly. This is that I know that I know that I know. And, I'm telling you, they've got stronger backbones than I do. They'll call and say, this is what's going on. I am telling you this. You can ignore it if you want. But when this happens,
Wow.
it's on you. So I've got a few team members who are not afraid to reach out. And it's with compassion. I'm joking when I say, it's, but they are very direct, and they're willing to not embellish, or nobody's seeking notoriety. In fact, it's like working the ER. When you go to the doctor or have a problem, nobody ever goes back to the ER nurse and says, hey, thanks. They go to the doctor and say thanks. They go to the floor nurses. Nobody even knows who the ER nurses are. It's a very thankless job, but it's very rewarding because we help so many people. And people come to the ER in their worst state. And it's very similar in forensics. People are desperate, and they're in a desperate state. And the goal is to help them find answers, or to find peace, or to give a voice to the victim. There's nothing in it for us other than the satisfaction of possibly knowing that we've helped a little bit,
Right.
Yeah.
I think I interrupted somebody on that last little session there. Is there a question that somebody was popping up with? No? Yes? Maybe?
No, I could ask a
Oh,
question though. Well, it's kind of a question, sort of, but I find that like when I do paranormal investigations, that when we go into a place, that the spirits want to tell their stories. And so there's oftentimes like we don't really encounter like dark things or it's usually
Mhm.
victims. It's people who've been murdered, like tragic things that come to us. And so they'll tell us stories about things that have happened to them or how they died.
Right.
So I'm kind of like understanding like what you're doing with this the forensic, because that's kind of like we kind of encounter that by doing paranormal investigations, because they do like I will go into trance and actually channel them physically, and there's things that I've had happen to me that I didn't know had happened to these people until later. So it's
Mhm.
things like that, like just finding their stories and them communicating with you to tell those stories of what's happened to them, because they like, if their body is missing, they want like, or they how they died, they want to tell their story. So it's
Mhm.
interesting that you have a team that's dedicated to that.
A lot of it's just getting closure. If there's possibly a possibility of getting closure. I'm thinking of one case that I worked personally before I actually had the team. And I think she knew the day she called that her loved one had passed. I think she had that sense, the mother's intuition
Mm.
that you talked about, but she
mhm.
just needed validation. And I didn't know her, I didn't know anything about her. I gave her what I could give her and expressed my, concern for her situation. And she has stayed in touch over the years and has been very kind about a very difficult situation that she has faced on her own, and they never found him. So, but I knew that they would never find him. That was
Okay.
part of the hard conversation. Yeah. Yeah.
How, and, my wife and I are big fans of the TV show Criminal Minds. Um,
Oh, isn't that great? Love
an
that
amazing
show.
show. The writers of that
Hmm.
show are geniuses. Um, how do you deal with that? I mean, I see them go into those situations that they have to deal with, and it they're just dealing with the worst possible scenario
Mm.
over and over and over again. How do you exist, and just keep moving forward when the outcome has already been established? The end is
Mhm.
has already been written for this particular book. You're just trying to put the pieces together, and it's like,
Yeah.
how do you deal with the dark and still keep that, you know
Right. Keep your mind, your wits about you.
exactly.
I think I learned how to do that working in the ER. We would get some really tragic patients that would come in there. And, I'm thinking of when we would have to do CPR on babies or young children. And some of the ways that they met their end were not pretty. They were almost horrific. And, it's a strange thing, but when you know that suddenly you have tasks to do and a job to do, and the goal is to, even if you can't save the person, to help the person through helping their family. I believe very strongly, obviously, that, it's just crossing into another room. When we pass on, we just
Uh,
move into a different place. So we don't end. And so a lot of times I have actually done CPR and looked around and thought, I hope we're doing everything we can. I talked
right.
in my head. I've talked to them, and so I think when you get into that frame of mind and you start working on the task of the job, it's almost like the emotions go away. There's I think her name is Sue Black. She's a medical examiner in Scotland. She's written a wonderful book, and I can't remember the title, unfortunately. See, I needed to write that one down. But she talks about this. She says that when she is looking at these horrific things, her soul literally goes into another room. Her spirit, her hope, her every aspect of her that is emotional and empathic goes into another room, and she focuses on the task. And that is probably the best way to explain it. That's how
Mhm.
I felt I was. And that's how I feel like I am with some of this stuff. It's shocking if you
Yeah.
stop and think that, oh my gosh, this is a person and they've gone through this kind of suffering and all this kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so it's like I focus on, what do I need to do? What do I need to look at? Where's the evidence? What is my intuition telling me? Is this staged? Is it not staged? Is it organized? Is it disorganized? What's the profile of the perpetrator or
Yeah.
the unsub? So there's all these different aspects that you can focus on that will allow you to do the task of hopefully finding answers and getting closure.
Right. And I can completely understand that because I'm a trained first responder.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked as a certified lifeguard for years. I'm a trained survivalist. So there's you, and then there's this that
Yeah,
when stuff
correct.
goes crazy and when it goes wonky and wrong, you kick into this other person
Mm-hmm.
that says, okay, everybody else is freaking out. I've got to think analytically. This is the steps I've got to go through to stay alive and to keep them alive,
Mm.
and this is what we've got to do. And it's almost, once you get that training and you go through that enough, it's becomes instinct after a while. But
Exactly.
I am not exposed to that on a daily basis.
Well, in
Um,
truth, I'm not either. When the cases come in, we work on them, but it's not every single day I'm going to see a death. It's not that kind of thing.
mhm,
Just like in the hospital, it was not every single day that we had a code, even though it felt like it sometimes.
right.
So fortunately, there is a little bit of pause and you can spend time there's a lot of research that goes into forensics. And that's one of the things that I kind of do. That's like, everybody has, I call them their superpowers. We all have our superpowers in the team. And mine is the research and the legal nurse consulting. And so, um, yeah, you don't have to deal with looking at it every single second of every day. But it's good to, I believe in meditation. I'm a big believer in meditation. I'm a big believer, as Tonya is too, in holistic wellness and caring for self, listening to your body and paying attention to what it needs. And sometimes you got to have a break, and our team, we have an agreement that if there is ever anything, whether it's in the course of our studies or during the meetings or any of the cases that somebody has to step away, no questions are asked. You just step away and take a break or say, this is not for me. And we all respect that.
And it's funny you should say that, because Tonya has a goddess retreat that she does up in Canada, and I've seen the posts from her retreat, and and I'm sitting there going, damn, I wish I was a woman, because I would sure love to go to that. That was like
Sounds
such a cool
wonderful.
time, it's so much fun. But
Yeah.
it's it just fascinates me that people can do what you do, and in first responders, and I'm talking about the firemen and the police and the paramedics, and deal with what they've got to deal with. I don't know if I could do it. In a survival situation, I could, because that's what I've been trained to do. When if it hits the fan, I got this. But in an everyday existence, and dealing with it daily, I just don't know if I could do that.
Well, the fan's not on every day. It's not. It kicks on when it's needed, and then it goes off. And we first responders, healthcare givers, forensics investigators, cops, everybody need to have people that they can go to too for counseling. So I have many people that I go to that have different levels and different abilities, and that's part of what you do. I remember one time mentoring another nurse, and we were doing CPR on a baby, and the baby, of course, didn't survive. And she goes, how do I do this? And I said, just focus on the job, just focus on your task. And she was dynamite. She ended up being one of the very best nurses in the hospital that we had there in the ER. But when it was over, we walked out into the ambulance bay and cried and just released and grieved. And I've cried with family members. It's part of being human, is being able to do that. I've watched investigators cry, decades after they solved a case. And I think that's part of who we are, and that's part of how we stay in tune with spirit and with God and allow all this intuition to come to us, is by being human, by meditating, by taking care of self.
Absolutely fascinating. Alexis, did you have something that you wanted to say? You did.
Oh, no, something popped up on my tablet with low battery. So I was like, oh no,
I'm wondering where you
plug in quick.
We're doing this.
Yeah.
But it's it's
I think it's one of those fields that it's not for everybody.
No,
I will say that.
No.
It's just like, honestly, I could never work on an oncology floor. My heart, or I could never be a vet. I love animals, but heaven help me if I had to go take care of a sick one. I just heart's ripped right out. So we all have our places that we're on this planet for, and things that we're meant to do. My goal in teaching this Sixth Sense Forensics course and is certifying is to help everybody that wants to be a part of this figure out what they can do and what they can contribute. And then maybe that's all it is. But that piece that you contribute is always massive. For example, we have one person, and it's not me. This person's way better than me with research. This person, I'm telling you, it is a superpower. I can give her anything, and she can locate on a map all of the information that has been given and has it pinpointed and color coded names and dates and times. It's unbelievable what she can do. That's all she wants to do.
And now
And I don't know what I'd do without her. She's a phenomenal
I'm
contributor
going to
to
hit
the
you
team.
with the worst question of the night.
Uh-oh.
You're going to hate me for it.
Do I have to answer?
What?
Yeah.
Fuck you is not an acceptable answer, okay?
Oh, shoot. Okay.
What is your success rate? What's your success stories?
Success stories
Yes.
in forensics or success stories in my life?
No, in forensics.
In forensics.
Right. Why we're here.
I know, right? Let me think over them. I think the best forensic stories that were successful are the ones, like I said, that brought closure, but brought answers.
Okay.
So one of them is the lady I spoke of. She did not get the answer she sought, but she did get closure, and she's at peace. And part of what I did with her is step into that spiritual counseling hat and worked with her to help her find hope in spite of the answers that she got. Another one, this was quite a while ago. It was a case that I was given to do legal nurse consulting on, and this was a horrific case. It was really a sad situation. Let's see how much I can say. This was a suspected homicide that was staged as a suicide, which happens a lot.
Right.
And so the question that I was given is, look at the condition of the victim and look at the scene and tell me if this medically is possible. And there was no question it wasn't. And so I was able to, I always write a, report, gave it to the attorney that I was involved with. And they settled this case, and it was settled properly. And the perpetrators were sent to prison, and it turned out right. So
Wow.
It's satisfying and it's successful when truth comes out, and I'm able to be a part of helping to bring out some piece of that truth. Even if the only thing I do is stand in the background and help the attorneys, in some way do whatever they need to do. Even if the answer is, nope, this isn't possible. And then they can move forward with what they need to do. It makes me feel like I've been able to help with that.
That's amazing. And if you haven't been told before, Marti, thank you, for what you do. Because it's truly that. Truly amazing. And
I just appreciate the chance to talk about it. I'm so passionate about all the things I did on that sheet. I mean, everything I do, I'm doing something all the time. And so, as passionate as I am about my writing and the stories that I'm still writing, and then as passionate as I am about teaching people to recognize their own intuitive abilities that we all have. Everybody has them. Anybody can remote view. Everybody can remote view. Everybody can use their intuition in a forensics setting if they want to go with forensics. If not, use it in your own life. Use it in, that gut feeling when you go to, say, a grocery store, and it's getting to be late. You park the car and you have a bad feeling. Pay attention to that. That is your protection coming from above. And if you pay attention to that, you can avoid really bad scenarios. You can avoid being a forensics case yourself often. That's the goal.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
I'm passionate about it. I want to teach people
ladies,
how to do this.
Tonya, Alexis,
yes.
We're closing in the last minutes of the show.
Yes.
We have anything else we want to ask this beautiful lady here? Alexis?
I think I covered all the questions I had. And I know Tonya had some questions.
Tonya?
So.
Well, there's just
got the floor.
I'm trying to keep it specifically with the forensics because there's so many other questions I have on all the other things that you do. So when you guys, do you guys, like you talked about, like a case will come and then whoever's drawn to it will work it?
Often, usually it starts as a team effort. So it's presented to the team, because once it's vetted and we decide that, yes, we can help this person, then it goes before the team. And then almost without exception, everybody feeds into what their initial impressions are on this. And of course, that is the research side of this. We've got all of those people who approach it from research. They're throwing all kinds of evidence and data. And of course, the ones that approach it from an intuitive are like, I don't want to see your data. I don't want to be front loaded, and they're over here. Don't let me see.
Yeah.
But they will approach it from their aspect. And then it's interesting because it seems like without exception, those that have contributed that are meant to contribute and are done will say, hey, that's all I got. I can't do any more. Or I've seen them be pulled into another case. Hey, I just found this case. Can I, is anybody interested in working on it with me? Yeah, me. I would like to look at that some more. And then those that are still on the previous case, they keep going. So it's almost, I feel like spirit comes in and kind of selects who's going to work. Everybody feed into it and then selects who is probably best suited to work that. And again, there are cases, like the medical or the consulting side of it, on the legal side of it, there's, I don't go for any intuitive impressions on that. That is straight medical. So the nurses or social workers or those that have that kind of licensure background will handle that side of things. But I have asked, what is your opinion? What do you think about this? I have this gut feeling about it. What do you think? And they'll often weigh in, and sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't. No, it's the onus is on the medical person to offer the correct legal, opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just opinion. It's always just opinion. Yeah.
Well, that amazing. I mean, we're gonna have to do this again. As always, I think every show we've ever had, it's like always been cut off way too early. And we can go on for for hours and hours on this. Marti, you are I don't know how to put it other than an amazing lady and one of the most fascinating people I've ever met in my life. And thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being our guests. And we're going to have to pull the plug on this for tonight because we're going over our time. But Marti, is there anything you want to plug? Any upcoming engagements you want to talk about?
Yes, actually there are. I want to give information for those looking for any kind of consulting for forensics or legal nurse consulting. It is Sixth Sense Forensics, spelled out SIXTH, senseforensics.net. Okay, there's a .com. That's not us. So it's .net. My books, if you want to, I'm going to show, David, I'm going to show them.
Go ahead. Plug it.
Here is number 1 of 3. These are the pirate paranormal ones, right? So it's history and it's Celtic witchcraft in there. There's a 4th one coming. So those books are martimelville.com. And you can get those. That also includes, this is the haunted house one that's based on history in Savannah. This is a good one. And then if you want any of those books, you can also go to my publisher, which is doseblantpublishing.com. They have this one. This is the How Do I Know It's Real? Dose Blant and the children's books. Oh my gosh, the children's. Here's all the children's books. Like, isn't this ridiculous? I had military boys. I couldn't sleep, so I wrote. All of this stuff is on my publisher's website. So DOCE, B as in boy, LANT, publishing.com. And then events in August in Brandon, I think that's it, Brandon, Florida, I am doing a book signing at Barnes & Noble. In July in Clearwater, I am doing a book signing at Barnes & Noble. So those are the 2 events. Then in July, I think it's the 15th and 16th. I will be at Spirit Fest in Lakeland, Florida, and I will be doing aura photography with the Kirlian camera, and that's my holistic stuff. And then I'll be, I think I'm teaching a course or teaching a workshop on, so how do I know it's real? So busy.
All
busy
right, you've
stuff.
got 15 seconds to catch a nap. Go.
Right?
I've got my own jewelry I'm making. I'm retired and I've got jewelry I'm making. I've got my home life, and it's like I don't have enough time to do all this, and a podcast, and it's like I don't have enough time. I cannot figure out how you do all this. There's got to be two of you. There's got to be two of you.
I am a very organized person, I guess. I don't know. A lot of lists. I make a lot of lists. Could you tell?
I bet you do. I bet you do. All right, Marti, thank you so much for being a guest on
Thank
the show.
you. Gosh, it was so fun to do this.
And I love talking to you, and I hope it's not another 13 years before we talk to one another again.
No, let's get
Because,
together.
in 13 years, back when I met you, I was young and good looking. Now look what you got. And 13 years, I'm going to be a mess. I know it's not there right now.
No, not even.
But again, thank you so much. We're going to move along to our special guest host, Tonya Steinborn. Tonya, what's going on in your life? What do you got to plug, and what are you doing?
Well, I'm so glad you get my name right. Most people get hung up on the last name there, Steinborn. Well, I'm doing a lot of work, like you had mentioned before, with women's retreats. I really specialize in working with the divine feminine and working specifically with women to gather in sacred circle and support each other and love each other, and to do deep work, trauma healing, inner child work, the fierce, fiery woman inside that we've kind of suppressed a little bit to help birth that again. So yeah, that's really what I've been really focusing on a lot this year, is just really working with women. We usually go away to a resort or somewhere for 2-3 days, and I design all these workshops. I work with like shamanism, a lot of journeying, meditation, all sorts of things to just really help women heal and to get our power back and just be really strong.
Right.
And because when we heal ourselves, we heal our family. So it's really important that we do our work.
And where can we find you
at www.tonyasteinborn.com, and that's TonyasteinBorn. So that's where I am.
Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Tonya. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. I am such a big fan of yours. I'm pointing my wife in your direction. She's kind of like Marti. She's got 1,000 irons in the fire, and we're gonna see what we can do about pushing her in your direction. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Canada's only a plane ride away.
I got
I'll come
news
and pick
for
her up
you.
at the airport.
I can spit and hit Lake Erie, so Canada is not that far from us.
There you go.
But anyway, that's going to wrap it up, guys. Alexis, thank you, dear. You are amazing. Look at that smile.
Yes,
That's the reason I got you on the show right there. You see that sunshine, that sunshine you bring across. I appreciate you stepping up and filling in, and you'll never know, how much it means to me that you're a part of the show, and you agreed to be a part of the show.
Well, thank you.
You will grow and branch out and become just as annoying as everybody else is on the show. I promise you. But with that, guys. Thank you once again for being a part of Transcending Veils. I am your host, E.E. Riley. Hopefully, the next time we get together, Miss Audra Moon will be with us and gracing our presence. Until then, guys, as always, spooky. Ladies, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Feel free to reach out to us at transcendingveils@gmail.com. We also have our Facebook page, Transcending Veils Podcast. We are also on Instagram at Transcending Veils, or if you guys want to reach out directly to myself or D.E. Riley, you can find us on Instagram at AudraMoon_ or Not Really Willie.